Hey, so I'm a little late to the party, but this is my NCIS Sydney Season 1, Episode 1 review. And what a delightfully absurd show this is. So, we start off with the foreign minister giving a speech at Sydney Harbor, talking about this collaboration between Australia and the U.S. and nuclear submarines. And so someone climbs up with a satchel, with a duffel bag. He goes up to, which kind of looked like a cello or something in there, but he's going up to the top of a building, and as she's giving the speech, and you see him take something out, and you think that this is going to be a sniper. And he unfurls a, no nukes, go home Yanks banner. And and then we see one of the sailors act like he just got shot, and he falls into the harbor. So then we see him on Rosie's table, and this is where we get introduced to the gang. There's Rosie, there's JD, and there's Evie of the Australian Federated Police, and Michelle Mackey and Deshaun Jackson of NCIS. And then there's Blue, who's part of some outreach program because their usual guy, McNamara, hurt himself, tore his ACL. I'm sorry, what? Tore his ACL playing basketball. Okay, do you really need to be able to walk in order to do this job? I mean, okay. So, absurdity number one, we're already off to a great start with the absurdities. And, she's extremely nervous about being there, which, understandable. It's her first day on the job. She wants to do a good job. She's just filling in. So it's not like it's her job to win on any merit. It's just, she's just a fill-in. And so Mackie and Jackson come in and want to take the case from the Australian Federated Police because this is an American sailor who died on an American sub. Hence, it's sovereign American territory. But he did a header into the harbor, so it falls under the jurisdiction of Australia. So they end up arguing. JD gets on the phone, and Mackie had the best line when he said, "Come on, let's not turn this into a pissing contest." And she goes, "Because we know I can piss further than you." Oh, man. So, he gets a call, and it turns out that it is from the foreign minister. And she wants them to work together. Because, well, I mean, considering the situation, it makes sense. NCIS is going to run the investigation and will take advantage of any resources AFP can offer them, which JD is not thrilled about. Mackie is okay with. I mean, she's like, makes sense. So, while this is happening, Evie and Deshawn are walking to Bondi Beach, and they're having a conversation about Mackie, about who she is, how Evie likes her so far, and so they're on the hunt for this Xena, because so they end up on a hunt for Xena because Blue found the dating profile of Xena, and that she supposedly was on a date with our dead sailor. And so they go to the building, and you can tell Evie already knows what's happening, that this is a drag queen. So, of course, she doesn't tell Deshawn, because I've already watched a couple of episodes, but she seems to delight in his discomfort. So, Xena quickly starts hitting on Deshawn. And you can see he's hella uncomfortable. So I'm sure, Evie was enjoying this, because I'm sure if this was JD, she'd be enjoying it as well, because there's just something about, having men who you consider as that so many of them act sexist or just downright creeps, to have them put in a position where, I mean, obviously Deshawn isn't that, but to put the men in a position where they're uncomfortable with the attention that they're getting from another man. So I'm sure Evie's totally enjoying this. And it turns out that somebody hacked their profile, and that Xena was doing back-to-back shows, so he had nothing to do with it. And they kept calling him he, and he was kind of, sort of in character. So I'm not sure about the pronouns, because I was always taught that when the queen is in drag, in their drag persona, they use the pronouns she, her. It's when they're out of drag that you use he, him. So this one was kind of in the middle. I have no idea about the pronouns. But anyway, so they go to, so then they go back, and they're trying to and at this point, Mackie and JD were, that Blue hacked and found this guy's face, did facial recognition, and found the guy that the sailor was in a fight with. So, and he just had the weirdest tattoo. It sort of was like an anarchy tattoo, but at the same time it was like a pentagram. It was bizarre. I'm really not quite sure what it's supposed to stand for. I don't think they said. Just said that he's an activist. So they're talking to him, and he just assumes that they're giving him grief because of the sign he put up. And I'm thinking, that is so quaint that you think that would be a problem for anybody. Okay, you put up a protest sign. not the same as, oh, I don't know, causing a disturbance. This, no. But he assumes that that's what they're there for. When, of course, we know what they're there for. They think that he had something to do with the death of the sailor. So they show him the footage they have of him fighting. And it turns out that he has more footage because he had his friend take more video, because he knows that he would get into trouble if he doesn't have every moment of his life taped. So they show him walking away, and he looked kind of woozy, but he just got a punch, so. And Rosie comes out and says, let him go, because this isn't our guy. And that's when he points out that he's irradiated. He died of radiation poisoning. Now, this is absurdity number 2. Because if he's irradiated, then everybody he comes into contact with would be too. Because that's how radiation poisoning works. At least if we're talking about radium. Like a leak. So, because everybody in the room could get irradiated. But anyway. So, so then they have to figure out, so then Mackie decides to talk to the DOD attaché, who they met earlier because he read them the riot act about let's see, this was the second time she met him. I'm trying to remember what was the reason for her meeting him the first time. Oh, I'm blanking. And I watched this episode twice. Oh my god. Anyway, she asks him, and then we see a montage. She's talking to him, and JD is talking to the foreign minister, and they both are basically saying, keep pursuing this, you could lose your job, basically. So they're both bummed that this is happening. And he even threw in her face this court-martial. This is the second time a court-martial was mentioned. So eventually, not this episode apparently, but eventually I hope that they'll explain why she was almost court-martialed. So then they discover that there was another officer that could have a lead, because they tested all the officers for radiation poisoning, but one was missing. O'Leary. So they go to... So they decide... They find O'Leary, and so I don't know if it was Rosie. It was implied it was Rosie who found him. I don't know. But they go to the hotel, and as they're about to approach his room, gunshot. So he's very dead, and he appeared with the same blonde woman who appeared with Flynn earlier. So now we have someone in common between the two of them. And since they're both dead, not a good look. So, they decide that earlier Flynn had been taken by the DOD because apparently they didn't want what was happening to get out. So they didn't want to lose Flynn's body this time. So they're like, okay, let's not take it back. So that's where we get their new headquarters for NCIS. And it's obviously supposed to be temporary because this is supposed to be a temporary situation. And they continue their investigation. Blue found a piece of hair, and they meet up again with the DOD attaché, who again is basically threatening them with their careers. And they mentioned earlier that NAVSEA is going to be the one to check out the sub to make sure that, there isn't any more danger. And he basically again threatens that they're done, that the investigation's over, they don't want them anywhere near it, because they withheld a body. It's like, well, what did you expect for them to do? They needed to do the investigation properly, and you keep stealing their bodies. I mean, so, Mackie decides Mackie comes up with this plan, which we don't see the plan until it's the fruition. They're all dressed in orange. I guess they're supposed to be hazmat suits, but they look very flimsy. And they go to the boat, and they ask to come aboard. NAVSEA, first the petty officer wouldn't let them, and apparently Rosie has a really good American accent. And so they conned him into thinking that his superior is the one who's allowing for this. Obviously, that means he's never actually heard the voice of his superior because, what? So, they are about to go on the boat. They encounter NAVSEA, or what turns out was, well, I don't know if they're NAVSEA. Maybe they were, but anyway. So, they get into a firefight, and by firefight I mean they start shooting because JD points out, I mean, he's a fast learner. The first couple of times he was referring to the sub as a ship, and either Mackie or both Mackie and Deshawn corrected him that it's a boat. And so when one of the NAVSEA people called it a ship, he's like, wait, I thought you Navy guys called it a boat. And so then you can see that, there's something there about the NAVSEA guys. But there was still a pregnant pause before one of them says, oh, here, I've got my orders right here, and starts shooting them. Which, when it came to them, they shot like stormtroopers. But when it came to the poor petty officer, he was hit. He was dead. I felt so bad for him. I mean, he's just doing his job. And because of this horrible situation. He ends up dead. So, they run to a bunch of storage containers, and they're all hiding. And the first person who looks like she's about to get caught is Evie. And somehow she removed her suit, her hazmat suit, and was able to somehow climb to the top of the storage container without making a sound. And so she's hiding on top of the storage container. So then we see Deshawn trying to run away. We see JD trying to run away, and Mackie. Unfortunately, Deshawn gets captured, and he's being held at gunpoint. And Evie, tells him to put the gun down. And I'm just like, okay. Who do you think will get shot first? I mean, it's basic physics. The bullet has a lot less distance to go from the bad guy's gun to Deshawn than it is from your gun to the bad guy. So Mackie sacrifices herself and lets herself get shot. And both Evie and JD are like, what the hell? Now, I don't know if they knew at this time that she was wearing a bulletproof vest. But they were both like, oh my God, what just happened? But JD was able to get his wherewithal to shoot the bad guy. And so Mackie congratulated him, saying, that was a good shot. She called him cowboy and said that that you've proven you're from the country. That was a great shot. And so the guys they get away. I don't know if I think it was just two of them at this point, because I'm pretty sure that JD shot that guy dead. So the others get away on a speedboat. And Mackie looks and she sees a chopper. Now, earlier she had told JD that she flew choppers, that she became a Marine because her brothers called dibs on the boat. And I'm just like, wait, why does there have to be it divvied up? Why can't they all be in the Navy? Okay, I guess her brothers didn't want to share a boat with her. I don't know. I honestly do not understand that. So, they go after him in the chopper. It's her and JD. And Deshawn and Evie are running from the storage containers. And then they see the chopper. And they're just watching them fly over the ocean. And they're trying to get the speedboat to stop. The speedboat is trying to get away, and then, boom, an explosion. So Evie told the media that it was a fishing accident, that one of the fuel lines got cut. And so then we find out that, I forgot to mention that before O'Leary died, he was given truth serum. So we find out that he was actually in the room where the leak supposedly happened. So And that's why he has classified access. That his profile is classified. And so of course he knows secrets. So JD's like, wait, are we talking about a leaking nuclear sub or leaking nuclear secrets? And I'm like, why not both? So it turns out that Flynn was irradiated, but it wasn't because of radium, but polonium. And the same poison that was used to poison, actually it was a couple in London. And so, okay, the Russians are involved. Awesome. And so they're like, how are we supposed to, go to the DOD and tell them this is what we found? Because that's just nuts. We don't have the evidence. Well, while they're doing that, Mackie and JD were called to the principal's office. And they're talking about, so what are you going to do when you lose your job? And Mackie was just so calm about it. Now, I liked that their hair was messy. You could see that they literally just came from where the speedboat exploded, and her trying to, not have the explosion bring down the chopper. You could tell that his hair was a complete mess. Her hair was a bit of a mess. And it's so nice that they understand that even though it's a controlled mess, that they had, it was a let's put your hair like this and action. But still, at least it's not this crazy, everyone looks perfectly coiffed, even though they just went through that. And so, I'd forgotten that Evie and Deshawn went to another bar, which doesn't have a surveillance. And that's where they got the photo, because they do photo booths. And she talked about a yard of beer. To which Deshawn's like, wait, you measure your beer in yards? Does it look like I drink beer? Okay, are you trying to convince me you're a girly girl? Because you're failing really badly. So, because yes, you do look like someone who drinks beer. So, anyway. So, while they're waiting, then the foreign secretary comes and gets them. And they both still think that they're about to be fired. JD said he'll go back to teaching, and Mackie's like, I'm still working on that. And she's like, can you dust crops in a chopper? Yeah, you're from Iowa. So, so they're talking about, the foreign secretary and the DOD attaché explain that there was a sleeper cell in NAVC, and that, that they did a good job. And they're like, but it's not over. We still haven't found the girl. And they're like, yeah, we don't know, but she'll turn up. So, now, like I said, I watched the next couple episodes, so they kind of dropped this. So I don't know if this is going to come back at the end of the season, the storyline. But they're talking to the assistant director of the local NCIS, regional NCIS. And he decides that they're going to work together. He at first asked JD how things went. It's like, yeah, things went fine. And then they realize what is about to happen. And they're like, no, 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 no. We don't like each other. He's a pain in the ass. And my favorite, which my mother does this to any non-American accent, they don't speak English. So I just was laughing at that one. So, turns out they're going to be stuck together for a while. Now, they said a week or two. I think not. Something tells me that it's not going to be a week or two. So, they go back to the harbor because everyone else had taken their stuff out of their headquarters because, everyone thought, okay, everything's been taken care of, we're done. And no. And she even pointed out that JD is trying to figure out how to break it to Rosie. And, because Rosie was the one who found their headquarters. And, so, but he's carrying a case of Budweiser. Now, maybe the Budweiser in Australia tastes different, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that is not the beer of choice in Australia. It might be the beer of choice in the US, but not in Australia. They probably have actually good beer. Because, at least in the US, Budweiser tastes like water. So, no. So, yeah, I consider that an absurdity of this show, that they're drinking Budweiser. I mean, maybe Mackie and Deshaun, but not the Aussies. Mm-mm. So, yeah, that's how it ends. That's how this episode ends, and let's see if I missed anything else. I don't believe I missed anything else. I know I didn't put things in order, and I forgot to check who is playing the DOD attaché, because he looks hella familiar. I'll have to do that before I do the next episode, which hopefully I'll get these reviews out still this month, February, because March Madness. So, yeah. With that, I believe I've covered everything from this episode, and I will see you guys in the next video.